Welcome to The Real Heal. I am your host, Dr. Renee Wallenstein, also known as the Libidoologist. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Oh, Ashley, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am also very excited to be here.
And, we're going to actually talk about a topic. I keep saying this because it was my intention in 2023 to have on guests or experts in topics that we don't normally talk about on The Real Heal. And that is a topic today, emotional intelligence and some other things. I'm sure we'll go off on a tangent that we're going to take a deep dive into. And that's something I don't even think people know what it is, but we're going to take a deep dive. We're going to go through all of it. But before we do, you're going to tell us like who you are, how you got doing what you're doing.
Sure. So my name is Ashley Valliere. I was a personal trainer for about 15 years. I'm currently a massage therapist, almost 6 years, and I'm in school right now to become a somatic body therapist. Mm-hmm. So it's a 3-year program. It's from Copenhagen. It's called Bodynamic. It's unreal. So that's kind of like the Coles Notes of where I am. How I got here was I grew up in a single household with my dad, and he was paraplegic. So he was paralyzed from the waist down. And I just kind of, watched him deteriorate really quickly, to be honest. He died when I was just out of my teens. And in that time, it became so clear to me, like our bodies are important. But as an elder millennial, there's no internet. There's no way to like find this stuff out. So that's actually why I became a personal trainer, because I was like, okay, well, if I know how to eat right and, diet and exercise, like all that, if I do that, then I should be okay. And it's true. To a point. But in working with people and myself, I started noticing my clients would have emotional episodes. Mm-hmm. So they would just start crying, or they would get so angry, or like it would just be this weird emotion. I'm like, whoa, like first checking in, like, are you okay? Is anything hurt? Like it was always fine. They didn't understand what was going on either. But it happened enough times that I was like, okay, like there's something else here. Like, what is this? But back when I started having these thoughts, it was very much like kind of a quote unquote wooey or hippie kind of thinking. So I had to keep to myself. So I secretly researched for like 10 years, like trying to find like, where's this connection? Like there's a brain body disconnect somewhere. Like, what is it? And I checked in all like the energetic modalities. I checked in like Chinese medicine, polarity therapy, Reiki, all of the things. And a lot of it made a lot of sense and it resonated. And I thought it was really helpful, but it still wasn't quite it. And that's actually when I found Bodynamic. And it's the muscular psychology based on our stages of development. And like, that was just like, yes, like this is what I'm going for. Mm-hmm. And so what happens when you understand what your body is trying to communicate to you is you become emotionally intelligent. Like you become aware of what's happening in your body, how your body's reacting to any given situation. And all of a sudden you have like an iota of control now, because you can see that something's happening, and then you can choose to behave or act or do differently. And I think that's one of the most powerful things out there. So I think emotional intelligence is like kind of like that keystone thing that we didn't know we were looking for.
So good. And, so we have so many similarities. I mean, different pathways of careers, but like just those questions of like there's something missing. What is it? And like searching for that answer. And I've done that throughout my entire career, to the point where I think I'm still not like, I'm not to my peak. I'm almost there, but I keep building. Like there's something missing. There's something missing. Oh, yep. There's what's missing. Let's study that. And like, and it's so interesting because I think with everything that we do is just, we're a lot of like, just keep asking questions like, why is this happening? And there's gotta be something deeper going on that you can address to try to reverse more of the things we see on the outside. Right.
Absolutely. And like, if I'm being honest, like, all of my research and stuff that I did was mostly for me too, like for myself first, because I was curious about myself. Like, why do I behave like that? Why am I like that? Why do I do this? Like, why? Like, like just the questions of like, why?
So much similarity. Like I do the same thing. Like I always start with me first. And like, when I find something, I'm like, oh yeah. Like I figure myself out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this could totally change lives. Like I found this, like, look what I found. So you specialize in decoding the body, learning how to navigate the body, it communicates. I'm sorry, I have to stop. I just said I never edit.
What happened?
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, thank God. I'm sorry. Like I just was like, I had to pause for a second because I'm like, I was starting to ask the same question. I'm like, everyone can hear. So we'll edit this little bit out right here.
I saw you pause and I don't know. Okay, that
I
makes
was
sense
like,
now.
I heard him going. I'm like, his belly must not. That's like the sixth time he's throwing up.
Oh.
My dog's sitting here going, what is his problem? Okay, oh my gosh. I just hope he leaves the room and goes and vomits elsewhere. My goodness. Anyhow, I'll clean up that mess later. That's all I've been doing is cleaning up either cat or dog vomitus. Anyhow. All right.
We're back.
Awesome. Okay. So you specialize in decoding the body, learning how to navigate the body, how to communicate with it, and this thing called emotional intelligence. So it's two big words. It's kind of foreign to a lot of people. And as we were talking before I hit the record button, I think a lot of us think it's for the CEOs of companies or leaders, like they need to have their emotional intelligence in check. Like, what is that? Like, tell us exactly what it is. And can you and I, as normal people, develop our emotional intelligence?
Short answer, yes. Yes, we can. For me, what I have found in my years of doing this personally and with clients is understanding the body and decoding the body has what is led to emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. So when you understand your body's cues, what it's trying to tell you, what it's trying to communicate to you, that's when you have that awareness, which is the number one thing basically in life, but especially in emotional intelligence, is you have awareness now. Like you can see differently than you did before. And when you have that awareness, now you can manage differently. So this is where you can learn different tools. This is where you learn different grounding and centering techniques, let's say, or, like I say, how to communicate with your body. So you can self-manage a lot better. And when you self-manage a lot better, because of this increased awareness, you have better social awareness. So now when you're in interactions with other people, be it like you're the big CEO of, however many people, or, you're just talking to somebody at the grocery store, your social awareness and interactions are going to be a lot more empathetic, a lot more compassionate, a lot more grounded, a lot more just nice, really, for lack of a better word. Like they're just going to be nicer because you can see where this person is coming from if there is a heightened situation of some sort, right? Like you can just understand the social context cues a lot better. And this just leads to better relationship management too.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back. So what are some of these cues that your body might be giving you?
Oh man, well, that's big.
Yeah.
So I'll give a couple examples, like ones that I see a lot. Exactly. So a lot of times I'll see like elbow pain, like, oh, like my elbow is hurting me. Like, I don't understand. Like I didn't do anything, but my elbow's hurting. And elbows, like if you think of like your arms, they open, like they reach out and pull in. So they extend and bring back kind of thing. So that's all about like giving and receiving. So if your elbows are really sore, perhaps you're overgiving. Like maybe you're doing too much for other people. Like maybe you're a people pleaser. There's lots of us out there. I'm a recovered one, but like always kind of giving. So you're overgiving, you're overextending. That could also be in context to prove worth, like prove that you're good enough, right? Is like you're doing so much, and, just to prove something. So like that could be why your elbow hurts. Like something like that. Like there's always the potential of the actual physical issue for sure. Yeah. And though, if you've been addressing that, then it's still kind of there. It's like, okay, maybe there's something a bit deeper. Neck pain. We get a lot of neck tension, a lot of neck, like just neck and shoulders. I get that all the time. I'm as a massage therapist, like, all this tension. Well, think of like, okay, you're climbing up a mountain. Okay. You're not going to carry your backpack in front. You're carrying it on your back. Okay. Our burdens, we put our burdens on our back, like our emotional and metaphorical burdens we carry on our back. And how many are you carrying for other people? Like how much are you carrying on behalf or trying to take the burden from somebody else, putting it on yourself and just building that stress and tension. So like things like that. What's another one? Knees, like a lot of knee pain. Well, our knees are our articulation that allow our legs to bend. Otherwise, we'd be walking around like little penguins, adorable, but not functional. So our knees are really important in forward movement. So where are you feeling stalled? Where are you feeling stuck that you can't take that next step forward? So those are just like a couple little examples of how the body like kind of tries to communicate.
Can I ask about two other areas?
Sure.
Back, low back.
Low back. Okay. That one is...
I'm testing you. I'm like, oh,
no, this one. Yeah, I should have used that one too. It's very common as well. Yeah. This is where we hold a lot of fear. So we hold a lot of fear in our back. And if you think like fight, flight, freeze, right? Like the adrenals are going bananas. Well, our adrenals are above our kidneys. Our kidneys are our low back. So it's like those adrenals are going kind of crazy. And so we're going to feel that fear in our low back. It also has a lot to do with money. Like it's very connected to money and like,
Mm,
I would assume like fear of lack of money or like not
mm,
enoughness.
mhm.
But yeah, we carry a lot of fear in our low back.
Oh my gosh. And one more area that I used
Yeah.
to see a lot as a gynecologist, pelvic pain.
Pelvic floor, like that's going to be a lot of, that's going to be a lot of like existence kind
Mm,
of, or potentially a lot of like existence issues. Like, am I allowed to be here? Do I have a right to be here? Am I worthy enough to be here?
mhm,
And it can also be related to sexual traumas. So
mm.
known or unknown, obviously, right? Yeah.
Yep. And we say all this because like Ashley said before, she went on into all more of the emotional that make sure there's nothing really wrong with the
Mm-hmm.
pelvic, with a low back. Like these are
Totally.
just like if you're told that everything's normal. And my next question, so I have low back pain, but I have an injury, but my right elbow intermittently hurts. So my question is like, if is this something that can come and go? So for instance, like on days, so is it so what I'm trying to ask is if I have elbow pain one day and
Mhm.
I'm aware of it, I'm like, oh, it hurts today. Should I tap in and say, okay, am I people pleasing too much? Am I giving too much?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so
Talk to
for
your body. That's
instance,
the best thing you can do is talk to your body. Like, hey
yeah,
body, like I noticed our elbows hurting. Like, what's going on? Like, am I missing something? Like, did we sleep weird? Or yeah, is there
yeah.
something else there? But like just ask the open-ended question. Absolutely.
And then if you like sort of like, okay, maybe I am, doing for everyone else, and where's my little self-care? And you shift that the next day and the pain goes away.
Mhm.
Is that
Totally possible.
okay?
A lot of times just the acknowledgement can help take the pain away.
Hmm.
So
So
for
that
example, I had my right hand was really hurting, like the top of my right hand. And it was weird. It was a random kind of like phantomy kind of pain. And so it went all the way up into my elbow. And so I started asking myself, like, okay, what's going on here? Like, how is this because I knew it wasn't physical. And so I just kind of kept like asking myself. And at that time, my partner was building a really big project in the garage. And so I was doing like everything every night for dinner, right? So all the dishes, all the cooking, all the everything. And this had been going on for weeks. And I was just getting kind of annoyed, but I didn't realize I was actually really over giving. Like I was doing too much. So our
mm,
right side is more of a masculine energy, left side's more of a feminine energy. And so the right side, so that's why I kind of attributed it to my partner. So I was like, oh, like maybe I just need to ask him to help me for a few nights. And so as soon as I had that thought, it was just this kind of like shooting little, like, I don't know how to describe it, like a little shooting blip in my wrist.
yep.
And then it was gone. Had to talk with my partner. Listen, I know you really want to get this project done, but like, I just need some help for the next few nights. Like, do you mind? Cool. Right. So, but a lot of times it's just the acknowledgement of it because the body's just trying to communicate, but it doesn't have like words. So once you kind of nail it, it's like,
Mhm.
oh, like she heard me. Like, okay. Right. Like
Mm.
it's just this like almost sigh of relief.
Feel seen and heard, right? Like we all want to be
Exactly.
seen and heard. That's so interesting. It's my right elbow.
Right.
So
So
it's
I
very
would like that would be something to kind of reflect on. Like, what are some like masculine energy? It doesn't even have to just be a man. It could be
yeah.
another woman in a very powerful position, right? With a more quote unquote masculine energy, right? So it's just
Yep.
those energies. Like, where is that maybe kind of butting heads with how much you're giving?
And I love that because, it all comes down to awareness. Like it's
Mhm.
my code, it's a word. I think my audience is so tired of me saying awareness, awareness, awareness. Like, but we can't change anything unless we are aware of it. And just like slowing down enough to realize, so many people are like, oh, just my elbow always hurts. And like they just go on to the next thing or my
Mhm.
hand or my back without stopping to truly ask a question. Or it's really interesting because you'll see a lot of people out there saying like, I have back pain, but there's nothing quote unquote wrong. So everyone's always
Mhm.
looking for that physical abnormality on an x-ray or a CAT scan. It's like, it could be much deeper than that. Like
Yeah.
literally, like a
And it can be
emotional.
fixed a lot faster too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like until the body gets acknowledged the way that it needs to, then it doesn't matter how much self-care you do, how many massages, acupuncture, chiro, you'll feel better for a few days, but it won't stick. But once
Mm,
you've acknowledged what's actually going on, then the body can actually receive the treatment because those treatments are amazing. Like they are so good and they have
mhm,
so much value. So, I
mhm,
mean, it's not that it's good or bad, but it's just like, can your body even receive it? And if it's
mhm.
just so bunged up, not being acknowledged, then it just doesn't really have room for it. So once you are able to, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, again, this that sigh of relief. It's like, yeah, now we can take that massage. Now we can get that acupuncture. Like now we can really
Yeah.
like soak it in because now there's room for it.
So are there any cues that are not like pain related? Because we talked a lot about pain, does body send any
It could be
other?
like behavioral. It could
Mm,
be like thoughts, like what's your inner dialogue like, right? Like there
Mm.
could be other things. Like I just use pain, and like pain is, it's a really big umbrella term. So it's not
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
excruciating. It could be like, I like to call it awareness too. Like,
yeah,
like my low back, like it doesn't necessarily hurt, but I'm aware of my low
yeah.
back right now,
Mhm.
kind of thing, right? So it's like it could just be like really dull like that. But yeah, there are other ways. It's just like that's usually the best way to get our attention because we're so stubborn, and that unless it really hurts, we don't tend to look at it.
Mm. So these thoughts or behavior, like, so let's talk about thoughts. Like, are these thoughts like negative thoughts? Like what kind of, what are,
Well,
what are,
like think of your internal dialogue, right?
yeah.
Like, let's say, for example, I forgot to take out the garbage and our garbage
Mm.
only gets picked up every 2 weeks. I'd be like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I did that. Like, I'm so stupid. Like now we're going to have to, and like, I can really start to berate myself about like how dumb I am.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Mm-hmm.
like, that's not productive. It's like, no, you just forgot. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Like, yeah, it's inconvenient, but it's not like the end of the world, end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, instead of saying those things, it's like, well, isn't that cute? I forgot to take out the garbage. Now this is going to be real uncomfortable for a few weeks. Like, that was adorable. Like, just little switches like that, because the
Mm-hmm.
subconscious doesn't have a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sense sarcasm. So you can be like, oh, I'm so ugly, or I'm so this, and like laugh it off. But it's like, oh, we must be. So then the subconscious is going to go looking for that. So if you can
Mm-hmm.
change that internal dialogue a bit, and it doesn't have to be massive shifts. Like I say, cute and adorable feel really weird to say, but the more you kind of say it, it's like, it is kind of cute and it is kind of adorable. And then that's what the subconscious will go look for, is more ways that you're being cute and adorable, not dumb, idiot, ugly, blah, 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 blah.
Oh gosh, let's like, oh gosh, how do we unpack that even more? Because this is like you're speaking my audience speak. Like, yes, they may have the pain, like you said. A lot of people have like, in like you said, awareness, like, doesn't
Hmm,
quite hurt, but it's just, but the
it's there.
thoughts are like, are major, like these,
Oh, yeah.
we could break down to like, turning everything. What do we have? Like 12 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and what, 80% of them are
And like a
negative,
minute,
and
just kidding.
or
Yeah.
actually, yeah, like a high percentage, 80% or something, are like repetitive, and 95% are negative, or vice versa. Like it's a
Mhm.
lot, in other
Yeah.
words. Um, and we go into this tailspin of like one little thing happening. Where does this come from? Like, so is this conditioning from our childhood, the way we like those negative self-talk, like, you just
Yeah.
forgot to put the garbage out. Does it, and all of a sudden it's turned into this big, like, end of the world catastrophe because you forgot to take the garbage out. Yeah, it sucks. It's going to be 2 more weeks, but like, where does that come from? Is that,
I would think
why do we
like,
do this?
I'm just kind of spitballing. I would think like, yeah, a lot of it would be in like influence from our environment growing up. What did we see from our parents?
Mhm.
Right. I've seen a lot with clients when it comes to like self-image issues, how their mom talked to themselves, like how their mom talked to herself about herself. Did I say that right? Like her mom, like the mom would say like, oh, I'm so fat, I can't eat this, or right. Like, so mom would say that. And then now I'm dealing with the adult child with these body dysmorphia issues, or these body image issues. And so
Mhm.
like learned behavior from parents. So yeah, like how
Mhm.
did your parents react when they would miss this thing or that thing, or like, like what was their reactions to life essentially? Because that's absolutely what you're going to pick up on. And
Mhm.
then there's always like, society, right? Like we're really encouraged to gossip, we're encouraged to smack talk, we're encouraged to tear each other down. Like there's not a lot of encouragement to like, build each other up and be supportive. Like that's just not, I mean, watch any of the reality shows, really. Like, like we're not taught how to like, be nice with each other. So yeah, it's learned behaviors kind of from all around.
Mhm. I see a lot online about like, parents emotional intelligence, like essentially, I don't know how she phrases it, like, yeah, your kids are watching, but a lot of parents aren't even, to act like 4 or 5 year olds sometimes in some situations. And, again, it's what we're modeling to our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, so for those people out there that, and again, it starts with awareness. It starts with, oh, gosh, I'm acting like a 5 year old, right? Like just
Yeah.
knowing that that's how you're acting. So, but there's a lot of people out there that don't see it. They don't see
Mm-hmm.
how they're acting. Or it's just out, like, the garbage is out of proportion, like the reaction, like you said, working with your previous clients, like all of a sudden out of nowhere, cry, get angry, like, again, it starts with awareness, but is there hope for those that are aware that they can work on it to develop a I don't know if a healthier emotional intelligence is really the word for it. I don't know
I
what
think
the
it
word for
works.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it,
Okay.
I guess just emotional intelligence in general. I don't think there's an unhealthy emotional
Yeah.
intelligence.
No, there's not
So
really.
just like emotional intelligence. So sorry, the question is like, is there hope?
Is there hope?
Yes,
For,
there is hope. And especially if you've had the awareness,
yeah.
if you haven't had the awareness, then maybe not, but you also aren't aware that you don't have, do you know what I mean? So you don't know what you don't know. So you're kind of, it doesn't really matter. But as soon as you have that awareness, like that's the first step. And so the next steps though, and like those next steps can take years, is the slow change into the new way. And that's what takes a lot of time. So like you can be in the awareness phase, witnessing yourself doing XYZ thing for a long time. And it can be wildly frustrating because it's like, oh my God, I'm doing it again. Like, why do I keep doing this? Right. Like you can kind of keep catching yourself in it. But the more you kind of catch yourself in it, you really will. And like, this is where coaches can come in handy, therapists, guides, like whoever can like kind of help you along the way for sure. But like, the more you kind of go through this, like you really do learn like, oh, there is another option. Like, what if I tried this? Or what if I said that? Like you can start kind of playing with it. And that's when you're going to develop this like new coding system in your body. But it takes a long time. So yes, it's 100% possible. Just be really patient and have fun with it. So let's say you do like, you do try a different behavior, or you say something different because you're like, okay, like I'm not doing that again. I'm going to do this. And you try it and it fails. And you're like, oh, oopsie poopsie. Like, let's try something different, right? Like be fun about it. Like, don't take it too terribly seriously. Like you have your whole life to figure it out. There's not a timeline. So just really be patient with yourself and find like little cute spots where it's just like the oopsie poopsies.
Oopsie poopsie. I love that. It's very playful. I mean, I think when,
exactly.
Again, I have an audience, mostly women, very overwhelmed. And when we start talking about these big, and as we said before we recorded, like anything to do with mindset, emotion, it feels hard. It feels big. It feels out of reach. And it's not sexy to do, It takes a lot of, like you said, consistency, like, and falling backwards a lot to only go forward, like a little, like half a step to fall back 3, like that's what you at least feel like when you're doing this kind of work. But like you said, like, so the first step is awareness, like, and there's so many different steps I know, but like, so just catching either your behavior to a certain situation or your thoughts or the pain, which is much more like
kind of depends. Like the pain is going to be a little bit more obvious, right?
Yeah,
that might be your very first awareness actually is the pain, is because it's been building for so long. And other ways your subconscious has maybe tried to communicate to you, it just isn't quite working. So it needs to get louder. So a lot of times, the body is the first line of communication via pain. But it can also just be your own awareness that something's not right.
Yeah.
Like that might be the only awareness is like, oh, like why? Like what's happening? Like it could just be a really big, broad question, but that could be the very first awareness. So, yeah. Did that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Sounds like a main brain fart there.
No. Yeah. Just feeling that, so, and continuing to ask the questions, like what's not right, and if it's a particular situation that you always have that feeling that something's not right. Like,
Oh, sorry.
Because,
No.
I
remember what I was going to say now. So it's like when you start to have those little like broad questions of why and like what's going on, that's when you can also subconsciously kind of start connecting it to other pieces that give you a similar reaction. And that's when you can start to kind of narrow it down a little bit more. There we go. That's where I was going.
But, it also takes another big concept I talk about a lot is being present in the here and now. And like just slowing down enough to like giving yourself enough time to slow down to ask those questions and like to try to piece it together and think about it and not think about what's coming up next or what you didn't do yesterday, and really being in that present moment. That kind of goes hand in hand with awareness. But like, I think I feel called to say this, that you really need to just slow down enough to, if you truly want to change that reaction, that behavior, address that pain, you got to stop and talk to your body, or like look at the situation, look at correlations with different situations. Is this bringing out it's the same person always involved when I act like this, right?
Yeah.
Ding, ding,
environment too. Is it always the same place that it happens? I will throw one thing on there, is that if you are in the middle of, we'll call it like a trigger or an episode, or like you're in that heightened moment, that's not a time to be present. And that's okay. That's a time to survive. That's a time to get through. That's a time to just like do what you need to do to get out of that moment. and then check in and then have those conversations. Don't try and do it in the height of the moment. It's just not going to go well. And then you're going to frustrate yourself even more, but just like be aware of it and be like, hey, I just need to survive right now. And that's okay. And then come back later once you've calmed down, once your nervous system is like re-regulated a bit and you're more in your body, then you can be like, okay, WTF just happened there. And then you can kind of start having that internal dialogue or out loud conversation with yourself, journaling, whatever it is, but like always do come back to it to make yourself present. But sometimes like the moment just, it calls for survival, and that's okay. That's why we have survival skills.
Mm-hmm. And then there may be a time if you work on it long enough that you're in that moment and you're triggered, but you've now thought about it enough being out of the trigger situation that you can actually take a different action.
And that is integration. And that's the beautiful, wonderful part. And that takes a long time. It does. Like it does. And like a long time is going to be different for each person, but that can take months, that can take years. But like, my God, the first time you have that realization in one of those moments, it's just like, oh, I'm doing the thing. Like I'm actually doing it. Oh my God. And then you're probably not as upset because like, whoa, like I have the tools and I know how to use them right now. Like, oh my God, this is happening. Yeah. So it's very exciting, but that's what ultimately the goal, but it does take a little bit to get there. But like, my God, that first time is just like, it's a party.
And like, I think I just need to repeat, like you said, like you might have to respond to that trigger several times before you get to that point where you've looked at it enough in hindsight and say, okay, I'm going to have this different reaction next time I'm in that situation. And then you can be present probably, right, at that point, because you're sort of come to terms with it. And it may take 50 encounters before or more before you get to that point where and it's okay, right? It's okay.
Well, because each one of those encounters gets you one step closer to that big integration, to that big realization. So without those little steps and quote unquote fails, like the big step doesn't happen. So it's like, it seems like nothing in that moment or a fail, but it is actually so imperative for the step to even take place later.
Exactly. And, we have to think about this. There's probably several of these throughout the day, right? Like,
depending on your work, like what you do, who you interact with. Oh yeah. If you have kids or not, like what? Yes.
Oh yeah. I've studied, I haven't studied this, but I've actually looked into this a lot, and I'm constantly doing the work on myself, but like, I am far from perfect. And there's times like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Like, didn't mean to do that, but it's getting better. I have to say, like, it's getting better. And there comes a time sometimes where your response is just no response. You just, I have teenagers. I have 2 teenagers. Yeah. Sometimes just to go back and say something, it doesn't get anyone anywhere. And it's just like I have more emotional intelligence than a 15-year-old right now in response to a certain heated situation. Yep. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And like, when everyone calms down, we'll be able to have a conversation. But like, it took me a while to figure that out, because as a parent, you're just like, like, especially when the teenagers can be a little sassy.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Right. But and for you in that situation, like you're like biting your tongue and you're like, oh, like you're going through your own ish, giving them their space, but like your teenagers are still observing that.
Yeah.
Right. So like, are they able to emotionally intelligently tell you this? No, but like later on when they're in a similar situation, they're going to remember and be like, oh, right. So, I mean, like you are teaching them emotional intelligence by doing that.
Yeah. Well, they're 15 and I have to always question, like, does their response, modeling my former response? Like they when they were little, I was an OBGYN, frazzled, freaked out. Like I would like at the drop of a hat, just be like, literally spilled milk would be the end of the day. Like it would just be like the worst thing. And it's so interesting that I just said that, because recently, my daughter observed someone spilling water literally. And her dad was like, this girl's dad, same age, was like, like, and my daughter later was like, Mom, like that was such a response that was out of proportion to her just spilling a little water on the gym floor. And I'm like, I know, like, I'm glad kind of fits with this conversation. Like she's recognizing that, like, that's not how you would respond. I'm like, it's just water. Like, she's like, I think she's going to clean her up, but her dad is like, okay, it's up there, clean it. I was like, whoa. Yeah. I think the kid is going to go clean it up. It's just, you don't have to yell at her to go do it. And, now this poor kid, every time she spills water, is going to like, expect the yell. Right. And it was just really interesting what my daughter had said. I was like, and it didn't really hit me until just now in this conversation that like, she's observing around her reactions that I don't have anymore. I used to, and thank God I don't. And hopefully she sees that now. That you literally You spill some milk. It's like no big deal. Like I've broken, and it's so interesting because I literally just broke an entire bottle of essential oil. I'm like, oh, that stinks. Like in the
Oh.
past, yeah, I was on my whatever. But I was like, in the past, I would have been like, oh my God, like I had so much money and like all about the materialistic things and like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh, that stinks. Okay.
Literally.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
yeah. It's like now everything smells like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily they're good smells on the
Okay.
fridge, but yeah, no. So so the moral of this story is like, I've been doing this work for a while, but, and I'm far from perfect, but I do find that when I kind of go back to those old behaviors, I may have already done it, but then I was like, ooh, we can't do a do-over. But next time I will probably pause. And I'm doing that a lot more. So for whatever it's worth out there to everyone listening, like
these are the baby steps it takes.
baby steps. Yeah. Yeah. And like just being aware that like for instance, that dad, he didn't know his response was like, but if he ever does, then he would be like, okay, that was just a little overreacting for spilled water. Maybe next time, I give you a chance to go clean it up. I'll still be like, oh, but again, it's awareness. He's not aware. Anyhow, moving on. So, you work with clients who are not new to self-development, like probably people like me that have been on this journey for what feels like forever, but probably 8 years. And it's so interesting when you're on this journey, like you always uncover new things, like whether it be about something, like you're always uncovering new things, but you specifically work with those that feel stuck. What do you mean by stuck? Because I think this might resonate with a lot. I may have a lot in the audience also on this journey, if they've been listening to this podcast for a long time, realizing how our mind and how we think and how we behave has a huge impact on our overall health, but and they're working on it, but what are we stuck with?
Well, what I have discovered, or my theory so far, is like, we're really good at doing stuff in our head and like understanding in our head and conceptualizing and like just getting it kind of cognitively, but it's the integration into the body that's lacking. And so that's where we get stuck in these same loops and these same patterns and these same, like, the awareness is very much there, but I'm still doing XYZ thing, right? Like, why am I still doing this? Like, it gets so frustrating, right? Like, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired of yourself doing the same thing over and over again. And so that's where I like to bring the body in, because as I mentioned before with body dynamic, the different stages of development, where like certain muscles come on based on the stage of development. So if there's a disruption in a certain stage, we would address those muscles along with, I like to do affirmation style statements from subconscious imprinting technique. So we do statements while activating a muscle. And so what that does is it really integrates into the body what's already understood in the head so that it can start to process through the body. And when you really bring the body on board with things, you become a lot more emboldened, you become a lot more empowered, you become a lot more aware of yourself, and you can advocate better for yourself. So you make better decisions just in general. So whether it's the spot that you're feeling stuck in or just like all of life, but like bringing the body in is a key, an absolute major component to unstucking yourself.
Okay, let me try to go back here. So if we're stuck, you can correlate the stuckness to a particular part of the body based on development or no? Okay.
Yep.
Based on the stuckness, like what they're stuck with?
More like the conversation.
Okay.
So the conversation that we're having. So it's like, let's use the people pleasing one, for example, right? So hang on, I just want to pull up my book so I make sure I give the right muscle.
Yeah.
Because that would be really awkward. One second. There we go. So the people pleasing one, like you're always doing for other people. Yep. You are probably saying things like, incredibly, hang on, there we go. So you're probably sacrificing yourself in order to feel loved and worthy. Like what you do for somebody else proves your worth. And if you're not doing that, then you're not worth anything. You could maybe be very judgmental, that it's just like, oh my God, nobody does things right. I have to do it myself anyway. So don't even bother helping me because I will do it kind of thing, right? There's kind of both extremes, but this is all in our will structure. And this is between the ages of like 2 and 4 years old that we start to learn this. This is when we become a little bit more independent, right? And so what I would do in a session. So if I hear these kinds of cues and I'm like, ooh, we are definitely in will here, like something happening, I would address their latissimus dorsi. So, or like the lower traps, like kind of a little bit of both, but like more lower trap area. Because if you put your hands there on somebody, so like basically the bottom of the ribs kind of thing, you can even like rest your hand on the hip bone if you want, so get a little bit of lats in there. But if you put your hands there on somebody and ask them to take a nice deep breath in and just lean back on your hands just a little bit, it is unreal the relief and support the body feels, because you're literally being supported from behind. And if you're always that people pleaser or the person that has to do everything because nobody else gets it right, you probably aren't used to having support or even allowing yourself to have it, right? You probably don't even know how to ask for it, to be honest, like depending on what side of the spectrum you're on, right? Like you probably don't even know that you can ask for help. And so to have somebody just place their hands there, and then you do a few statements around like, hey, I'm allowed to ask for help, or I forgive myself for believing I'm not allowed to. Like it's a huge release, and the body, you can really just take that in. And then outside of the session, you can almost like imagine like phantom hands there, you know, like you can feel like, okay, I've experienced what it's like to physically have support. What would it be like to ask for it? And so you can kind of, it brings a little bit more power to your being to like ask for that help, ask for support in different areas, even if your voice shakes a bit, even if you're scared that like, oh my God, if I ask for help or if I set a boundary or something, then I'm never going to hear from this person again. Like all those fears are still very much real, but because you've started to kind of integrate it more into your body, like it's okay if that's the case, right? Like you have you take in more of your own value and your own worth.
I love that. Now, when you're talking about, is this when you're doing work on somebody in like person? Okay. So the audience, if they're listening and they can picture, you know, the hands, of course, on the podcast, you're not gonna be able to see the hands, but like you displayed YouTube, you will, but, leaning back, and they're sort of like, I feel like they're angel wings, kind of like, had them. And are they sitting up and leaning and
the person that is putting their hands there, ideally they're sitting down and the person is in front of them standing up. Just because then it's more comfortable for both people. Like the person sitting down can feel like in a nice, solid supporting position.
Like sitting in a chair.
Yeah, exactly. And then the person's just standing. And like the lean back is very subtle. Like you're not putting your whole body weight on them, but you're just enough that you can feel the pressure of the hands. And then you take that deep breath in. And because it's at the bottom of the rib cage, when you exhale, you can still feel that pressure on your rib cage, and it lifts you up. And it's just like, oh, like that feels nice. So I recommend that a lot with people to do with their partner. Like you don't even have to explain why, but just like, hey, can you put your hands here for a second? And then just take a couple breaths. And it's just like, oh, that feels nice. You know, if you want to explain, that's fine. But
and I went into detail because this is a lot of my audience. This was me actually for the longest time. And I talk a lot about boundaries, and, you know, a lot of women are burned out because they don't feel like they don't know how to ask for help. They don't feel like they can ask for help, or they can do it. They can do it better than everybody else, or you're going to have to owe someone something if they ask for help, because that's how they've been conditioned, and they don't have it in their bandwidth to help anyone else right now. So like they just take care of themselves. Like there's so much wrapped up in all that, which is why I went back to how you actually do it, because I think that speaks to a lot of women out there. Like I can tell them all the things about boundaries and this and that, but like this is actually something that they can do. And the affirmations you said they do when they're getting supported, or after, when they have the phantom hands on?
Both.
Okay.
Oh yeah. All the time.
Okay.
Another good one, if you want for that overworked, overwhelmed person, is our anterior deltoid. So the front of the shoulder. So reaching up. So when you think about it, like this is more of our needs. So this is like when we're babies, when a baby's crying, right? Like they reach up, like they want like, you know, uppies, like help me, I need something. Right. And so it's the same thing when you're an adult, like you reach out. So if you place your hand just on the front part of your shoulder there and reach your arm forward, and then ask for your need, like, hey, and start small, right? Like, hey, can you reach my water for me? Like, hey, can you pass me that salt? I don't know. Like, it doesn't have to be a big deal. I have to very much encourage people when they're starting to play with these things to make it very small. Like, can you pass me the water? Like, not, can you, you know, take over laundry duty or something. I don't know.
I was going to get it better. I'm like, can you clean the house?
Exactly. Like maybe not the big ask right out the gate. We got to practice, right? Like we can't run before we learn how to crawl. So it's like asking those little things and realizing like, oh, well, when I asked for that, like it was okay. Right. And so like, you're kind of building your own little book of evidence, but you're also training yourself to ask questions and like to ask for help. So the back is to support, and the front, like the shoulder there, is the actual reaching, the ask. So in a session, we could even combo it up. Hands are on the back. I'll have my client reaching in front, asking for whatever it is they want help with while they're receiving support. Right. And so like this just integrates in like the cognitive idea of it and the understanding into the body.
Gotcha. So you're utilizing your work because you have a history of massage, you're a massage therapist. So you're using it in massage as well.
That would be more like the
Oh,
homework after. Yeah.
oh, okay.
I try not to do too much when somebody's like naked on a table, because that's already like, vulnerable
Yeah.
enough. So I don't like to like bring things up there. But after, like when we're kind of debriefing at the end, that's often the homework I'll give, is something like that.
But do you do specific like work on them during this, like when they're naked on the table?
No,
Or
massage
you
is just massage.
Okay.
It would be a separate session. So that would be like a
Gotcha.
body decoding session.
Gotcha. So it's totally
yeah.
separate. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, how do you either teach or yourself ground and center yourself? Because I feel like this comes back to that, like, it's sort of like this series of events. Like we're talking about awareness and presence, and like everyone's minds are all over the place and they're giving and they're people pleasing. And like, how do we in those moments come back and ground ourselves and center ourselves?
One of my favorite things to ground is like to get myself back in my body and like kind of recalibrate almost, is a lot of times we're taught like, push into the ground with your toes. I like to pull up from the ground with my toes. So I'm pulling energy up, because the energy is probably all up in your head. It's up in your head, your throat, your heart, right? Like it's probably in this upper part of your body, and it's probably very busy and it's probably very loud. So when you're pulling energy from the floor, what you're doing is you're getting your feet to pull energy, like kind of like a life force energy. You're pulling that energy up, and it's going to meet the energy at the top. And so then now your whole body can kind of filter it through. So I've really enjoyed that as far as grounding and just kind of getting back in my body. And then centering. This one is interesting. So what I found for centering is like, we kind of go to our belly button or our sacrum. So you can kind of focus on those two spots. And if you do that while you very gently and slowly tighten your sphincter muscle, like your sphincter, that is just going to like, you're going to be super centered, but do it gently. Like this isn't like centering. You're centering.
It's a gentle center. Yeah.
Yeah. Also like that muscle. So that sphincter action, that is a lot to do with energy management. So if you can kind of control the open and close of that in any given situation. So if you're trying to reground yourself and like get back in your body, that's a way to find that center as well.
Yeah, it's a root lock in yoga. Like we lock our root,
Okay.
But it's energy conserving. Like
Yeah.
I do Kundalini, so it's all about the energy up the spine, and you lock it in with that sphincter.
Yeah, it's a very important thing, and it's and it's easy. It's easy to access because we've all like had to hold it in at some point, right? So it's like we know how to use it.
Exactly.
But the idea would be not to use the glute muscles at the same time. That's the only thing.
Yep. Got it. And I love how this concept, like I take it from yoga, but like it just crosses so many areas of just energy and centering and grounding and like energy in the body, I should say. So I love that.
Well, I think a lot of this kind of like, I don't know, like more like wellness and like holistic style of healing is like, it's very overlapped. And I think it needs to be, because we all hear things differently. So like yoga is not my language, like it just isn't, but I can understand and appreciate how it's so applicable to other people. But like, I like stuff over here. Right. So it's like, it's all different languages that say the same thing. And I think that's really cool. So
that is cool, is how you resonate with it. Right. But
yeah.
we're all doing the same thing. So it's all at the end of the day, they're doing the same concept, but just how we talk about it. So the last couple questions before you wrap up, I've added on this new two little questions that I know I personally want to know, but I know my audience are always intrigued with what my guests do. So question number one is, do you have a morning routine? And do you have an evening routine too? One and two.
I do, but they're not exciting.
That's okay.
I'm happy to share them.
Yeah.
First thing in the morning, like I don't hit snooze anymore. I haven't done that for some months. So I don't hit snooze, but I literally roll out of bed and go downstairs and start working out. Often it is not enthusiastic. It's not very exciting, but it gets me moving a little bit. And I think that that's really important, just to get some movement first thing. And even if it's a day that I really have no energy for it and I don't really want to be there, just doing whatever it is I do is 100% more than nothing. And so that's a baby step in the right direction.
Do you leave your workout clothes out? Because I know a lot of times you'll hear people, I'm just too tired. I just think about working out and I can't. I know I have to do it in the morning first thing or else I'll never get it done. Like, what are those mornings that you don't want to work out? What's your little key to like getting it done?
literally just rolling downstairs. Like,
Okay.
just get down there, move, like, get downstairs. Okay, you made it downstairs. Good job. All right, go put on your sports bra. Okay, go do that. All right. And then like,
Baby
just
steps.
set up the weights. Like, okay, we did that. We're doing good. We're doing great. Like,
Okay.
just a lot of like almost
talks.
over enthusiastic pep talk. Like, you're doing so good. Look at you go. You got your sports bra on. Nice. All right.
Well, and the funny thing is, you know how good you feel when you get it done,
Mhm.
right? And like, how many of us, if we don't do it, we beat ourselves up all day. Like, oh, I should have
Yeah.
worked out and I didn't. And all the things. So like, kudos to you. Even if you go down in your bra and underwear or whatever, your pajamas, whatever you wear to
Yep.
bed,
Just get it done. And that's the beautiful thing about working out at home.
yeah,
There's
you're not
nobody
gonna
here. It
just-
doesn't matter like what you're wearing. Who cares? Just start
I
moving.
love it. I love it. So that is super impactful. So thank you for that.
No problem. That, or like, if it's really nice out, because like I'm in Canada and it's been a
Mhm.
million degrees below zero forever. So
Mhm.
as it gets nice out, I might start the day with a walk and then come in and do a workout, but it's just because it's so nice out. And then for the evening, I love to read a book for like an
Mm.
hour, half hour, 45 minutes, like anywhere in there, sometimes longer, depending how they do the chapters. But it's like fiction books, like something fun. I like to read series, like nothing serious before I go to bed, like something fun fantasy-ish, right? Like just to kind of unwind at the end of the day. It's just a nice way to relax. So I like to do that.
I love that. Yep. So what I hear there is like fun, playful, nothing that's going to get your brain working too much. And you're not on your screens. You're not on your phone,
Yeah.
your computer, which is really important for sleep. So, well, you know, I know it doesn't sound interesting to you, but like just hearing that, it's like, you know, someone out there be like, okay, she can do it. I can do it. I can get it. I can just roll down in my pajamas and start
Yep.
working out. Like once you get started, it's hard to stop. So final question.
Okay.
What is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew 5 or 10 years ago? Or even longer, if it's long,
Even longer.
yeah. Like some people, it's been 20, 25 years that they had like an huge aha moment.
I wish I would have known that it's not as complicated as we make it out to be to talk to the body. Like it's
Mm.
really not, it's not a magic anything. It's literally just a conversation. That would have changed a lot of things.
It's
Taken a
funny
lot of
because
stress away.
that was one of my questions early on. And I'm like, she already answered it. You just literally talk to your body. Like, what do you need? Right. Like,
Yeah.
cause I was like, how do we do that? It's like you said, we make it way too complicated. It's
Yeah.
very simple. It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
So
The only thing, we just need patience, right? So if you are asking your body a question, like we were talking about earlier with like the elbows, right? Like, hey body, like what's going on with the elbow? Like you might not get an answer that second.
Yeah.
But you've thrown the question out there. So just wait a little bit. Like it might be when you're on a walk or when you're driving or you're doing something kind of mundane, you'll be like, whoa, you'll have an epiphany and you'll have a moment and be like, okay, that's what it was. Right. So it's like, ask all the questions and then just be open to when the body decides to tell you.
Perfect. I love that advice.
It's on
That's
its own
so good.
timeline.
Well, that's the thing. I find like when I force a question, like even creativity, like when I'm sitting there, like, oh, I need to just stop. I need to ask the question and I need to walk away. And you did my two things that always I get the downloads: walking
Mhm.
and driving. Always.
Yes.
Like to
Yep.
the point where I had some of my best content written when I used to commute 2 hours to work. Like I would literally voice note a ton of things because I'm like, oh my God, I got this idea. Oh my God. Oh my God. So those two things for me, like like you said, you have to be patient and just like, okay, ask the questions and move on. And then it will come.
Yeah.
Don't have a timeline around it. It will come.
And you can keep asking, like, let's say you're not getting your answer, like keep asking, but like, yeah, it's not going to be, oh, well, thanks for coming here. This is your answer. I mean, I wish.
Thanks for asking. This is what's going on.
Right. Could you imagine? That would be so much better, but
Yeah.
alas, that is not.
Well, and it might even be in the situation, right? Like you again today raised awareness why your elbow might hurt. So that's just raising
Mhm.
awareness like of situations that you might be put into in the future that that you can't think about in the, like current moment, but when you're in that situation, like, oh, this is it.
Mhm.
That's
Exactly.
why, right? So this has been awesome. Again, a completely different conversation than we're used to having here on the show, but I think it's really necessary because I think a lot of these concepts are foundational to overall health. And you know, I'm a parent and I really care about how I respond and behave, and I care about my own body, right? Like, and things that are
Mhm.
happening to me. So I think you just guiding us through like tapping in and decoding our own body, but then being aware enough to know what's going on around us and how we're reacting so that we can be better role models for our kids.
Yeah, just better people in general.
Oh yeah,
It's not,
that's
it's
the thing.
not hard to be nice, but you got to be nice to yourself first.
Exactly. And that's why I do all my personal development. I want to be a better human, like, you know, for myself and everyone around me. So anyhow, before we wrap up, tell the audience where they can find you. Where do you like to hang out? Are you anywhere on social media? Do you have a website? What are you doing right now? All the things.
I am the best way to reach me is on Instagram. So at the Ashval. And in my bio link there, that's where I have all my like latest kind of offerings. I just started a second round of case studies. So I filled that up, but I'm looking to do more kind of online stuff so that people can participate from other places. So like more group work. So that is coming down the pipe, as well as monthly meetups where it's like, we're going to alternate between Q&A sessions where you can come in and ask me a question and we can like hash out, what's going on in your life. And just like sharing circles, because being witnessed in our growth and development is also what helps to integrate it in. And so just being able to show up and just be who you are in any given moment or day is really, really important. So that is also going to be in there too.
Wow. Yeah. We'll make sure all the links are in the show notes. If they're not, sometimes I only have limited room on whatever platform you're listening, but on my website, it'll be linked to my website.
Perfect.
So we'll have all your links, all the things. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time to come on today and educating us all on this huge topic, or not so huge, but
big, but not, but it is.
It's
nuanced. Not. It's a very nuanced topic.
Exactly. So thank you again.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Real Heal and that you learned something new. And with that, I'm out of here. Talk to you again soon.